If I was to ask you, what would your biggest matchup of 2023 be? What would your answer be? Would your answer be Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor for the fourth time? Would your answer be John Jones coming back to fight Francis Ngannou in the heavyweight division? Or would your answer be Sergey Krylov, the Russian geezer, facing Francis Ngannou for the heavyweight championship of the world? Would that be the biggest fight for you? What would it be? Or is there a mystery fight in your head that is potentially the biggest matchup of 2023? My answer, I don't think it's a controversial one, to be honest. I think a lot of people would agree with this answer particularly. But my answer to what the biggest fight of 2023 would be is a fight between former R2 Division UFC champion of the world and notorious Conor McGregor versus the former Bellator lightweight champion of the world and the current number 5 ranked lightweight contender, Michael Chandler. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see a fight that's going to bring fireworks, if you want to see a fight that's going to sell pay-per-views, the fight between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler should certainly be the fight that the UFC, especially President Dana White, should be calling for. Not calling for, should be signing. Let's take a look, for example. Michael Chandler back in June called out McGregor, but in a very gracious, kind of like respectful way. It wasn't anything disrespectful like Nate Diaz did when he held up the mic and he said, F that, Conor McGregor, you taking everything at work for, mother effer. Do you know what I mean? He didn't do that. He was respectful. He respected and acknowledged that Conor McGregor was the reason why a lot of people got into the UFC, let's be honest, or at least came in to become UFC fans. And the fact that he has bring more revenue to the UFC as a sport than probably any mixed martial arts fighter in history. He acknowledged all of that, gave him credits, but he said if there was a fight that would bring fireworks more than any other fight in UFC, it's definitely a fight between him and Conor McGregor. And I agree 100%. This actually came in an interview with TMZ. Conor's coming back anytime soon. I think me and Conor would make some fireworks, and it's a fight that fans want to see. I think it's the biggest fight we can make in mixed martial arts right now. And I try to say that as humble as possible, but I think it's a huge fight. And I agree 100%, it's a huge fight. This would be literally the biggest fight. Not only the biggest fight, but the most exciting fight we've seen in a while, especially probably in UFC history, to be honest. Conor McGregor, world-class outstanding striker, not the best grappler, but a definitely incredible top-class striker, facing Michael Chandler, who is literally the baddest man on the planet. He would fight any man on the planet, regardless of who you are, where you're from. It doesn't matter. Like, he would bring the fight on. And if we break the fight down, at least from a statistical standpoint, I mean, Conor McGregor hasn't fought in the UFC since UFC 264, all the way back in 2021, when he suffered, obviously, a defeat against Dustin Poirier in round 2 because he broke his leg. I think it was his left fibula, and his tibia. Unfortunate for him, and since then he hasn't really been back. He's definitely bulked up a lot, gained a lot of muscle mass, which we've seen on his Instagram posts and all of that. I mean, he looks like a Hulkamania. He looks like Hulk. It really does. But I think that really begs the question on whether he would be able to make 170 pounds, or even I think he would struggle to make lightweight, obviously 155 pounds. But I think the fight definitely should then go into welterweight. But would he even struggle to make welterweight? That's the question. I don't know. I mean, the way he's looking right now, he's probably at least 200 pounds, honestly. Crazy. Considering the fact that UFC 264 in itself, the fight that he lost against Poirier, generated 1.5 million pay-per-view buys, I think a return against Chandler would probably do even more than that. So that's why I'm saying this is an exciting fight. The previous fights that Chandler had, he had a fight against Poirier, had a fight against Gaethje, Charles Du Bronx Oliveira, Tony Ferguson. There's not a single one of these fights that disappointed. Not a single one of his fights disappointed, honestly. A devastating knockout against Tony Ferguson. A front kick to the face, ladies and gentlemen. A front kick to the face. He's the man. Though obviously he lost, the decisive fight that could have earned him either a title shot or could have actually given him the title For example, a fight against Charles Oliveira. But he definitely bounced back. And he's already had 5 fights in the UFC, lost 3 and won 2. Incredible. Top quality fighter, honestly. Absolutely fantastic. And obviously, Conor McGregor, who's been away from the UFC for a while. Obviously, the 33-year-old now is getting old, in it, McGregor. But obviously, he's a UFC legend. Yeah, he was the first ever two-division UFC champion of the world, featherweight champion, also lightweight champion of the world. Though unfortunately, he never had the opportunity to be able to defend these titles. But he's definitely there in terms of like the UFC Mount Rushmores. Absolutely. And definitely, I think that's a video idea actually. My top UFC Mount Rushmores or top 5 UFC fighters of all time. And one of the disadvantages as well for McGregor, if this fight between Chandler was to ever materialize, is the fact that obviously after starting his professional UFC career with 19-2 record, well, with a 19-2 MMA record, McGregor has lost 4 of his past 7 UFC fights. 4 of his past 7 UFC fights, he's lost it, right? 3, and also lost 3 of his last 4 fights, and 2 fights in a row he lost against Dustin Poirier. So statistically, it's definitely not looking good for Conor McGregor going into a fight against a killer like Michael Chandler, to be honest. Whereas Michael Chandler, though he's lost to Dustin Poirier and just engaged him by decision, obviously Dustin Poirier by submission, he lost. We've seen him knocked out Dan Hooker, but also knocked out Tony Ferguson, former interim lightweight champion of the world, ladies and gentlemen. But I definitely think that this fight, from a financial standpoint, and also from an entertaining standpoint as well, will definitely make a lot of money for the UFC, to be honest. Will generate income for the UFC, ladies and gentlemen. And will be an exciting fight for all of us fans as well to watch. I mean, Michael Chandler doesn't play about, to be honest. He's definitely one of the baddest men on the planet, one of the baddest men to ever step foot in the octagon. And his opponent, Conor McGregor, one of the most skillful men, former 2-division UFC champion of the world, ladies and gentlemen. I do definitely want to see your views or know your views on like what is going to transpire or materialize if that fight was to ever happen in 2023. Who do you reckon is going to win? And how much pay-per-view buys do you reckon that fight is going to make between McGregor and Michael Chandler? Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to leave your views or opinions down in the comment sections. Smash the like button down below, comment and subscribe with notification bells obviously turned on, and I'll see you later. Peace.